Hello, NAFI Consulting Firm. My group is here today to present a case study done on the Carnival Corporation and PLC. My name is Eman Buwala, and we are the SCAD investment team. As we go through this presentation, we want you to keep in mind our overall stance that will be explained during the recommendation phase of the PowerPoint. Our team states that the Carnival Corporation and its subsidiaries are not a worthwhile investment for the NAFI Consulting Firm. In order to support this point, we will start with current practices, then move on to the industry evaluation, then the financial analysis, and then finally the recommendations. I will now hand it off to Sarit to give you an overview of the company and its current practices.
Hello, I will be talking about Carnival Corporation's current practices. Specifically, I will be focusing on their priorities and how they address them. In a statement made by Arnold Donald, the CEO of Carnival Corporation, he shares that Carnival's highest responsibility and top priority is government, environmental, and social factors. They intend to address these priorities by establishing 2030 and 2050 goals in 6 key focus areas: climate action, circular economy, diversity and conservation, and sustainable tourism, which aligns with several UN's SDGs. Throughout the sustainability report, Carnival outlines ways they intend to address environmental, social, and governance issues. In the interest of time, I will not discuss all of them, but only focus on the key ones. Starting with environmental factors, between 2000 and 2021, Carnival had to pay $71 million in environmental violation fees. In 2016, when Carnival was put on criminal probation, their spokesperson shared they recognize their past environmental mistakes and are dedicated to addressing them in the future. However, the reality of their environmental practices suggests a lack of long-term vision. Carnival has resolved to adaptation techniques such as planting trees, creating artificial coral, and installing scrubber systems, instead of handling these issues at the root cause, which is their practices. Additionally, one of Carnival's solutions to air pollution and climate change is transitioning towards liquefied natural gas. But the fact of the matter is that liquefied natural gas produces more emission per unit of energy as compared to heavy fuel oil and marine gas oil, which is being currently used. Moving on to social factors, Carnival has had several incidents due to mismanagement which have greatly endangered their employees and guests. Specifically, Carnival Triumph's engine fire, Carnival Concordia's sinkage, and Grand Princess, Diamond Princess, and Ruby Princess's COVID shortcomings. Additionally, Carnival claims to promote diversity, but the racial breakdowns used to flaunt this diversity is cause for concern. 70.7% of their workers are from Asia, which makes sense because Carnival exploits Asian workers for their willingness to take poverty wages. Finally, governance factors. Carnival regularly flies the flag of convenience and demonstrates a lack of political will. By incorporating the company in Panama while operating in the US, Carnival is able to take advantage of Panama's lax labor and consumer health laws, while skirting US corporate taxes, which even as a foreign entity they should be paying. Finally, Carnival's $82 million in violations emphasize Carnival's disregards for laws unless they severely inhibit their operation. Put together, Carnival shows no proactivity in the CR space and won't even guarantee a safe passage for their passengers. I'll be passing it off to Campbell to talk about the industry evaluations.
Hello, now I'll discuss the industry as a whole and Carnival's place in it. Looking at the industry ESG ratings, the cruise industry overall ranks very poorly on ESG metrics, with more than half of cruise lines earning an F overall. You'll notice that most of these cruise lines that earned an F are Carnival and their subsidiaries. They have abysmal scores for sewage treatment, air and water pollution, transparency, and criminal violations. In fact, all of the cruise lines that had criminal violations were Carnival and their subsidiaries. Looking closer at their ESG ratings, MSCI gives them a ranking of B, which is the second lowest rating. This puts them in the laggard category. They in fact earned a rating of CCC, which is the lowest possible rating, for the last 5 years, and were only moved up to a score of B in the last 2 months. This shows a sign of an improvement, but still puts them significantly behind their peers. For a PESTEL analysis, the political, legal, and economic factors have been significantly impacted by COVID-19. This includes new regulations and suggestions by health authorities such as the CDC, as well as significant changes in stock prices, such as the 60% drop in March 2020, but a rebound up to 80% of their original capacity, closer to 2021 and 2022. Technologically, cruises are researching and piloting cleaner technologies and renewable sources, but these are limited right now by construction issues and financial limitations. As far as social factors go, millennials are an important new market for the cruise industry to tap into, but they are currently trying to win them over with things like trampolines and sky bikes rather than the pro-social messages that millennials would prefer that appeal to their values. The environmental factors have already been discussed, but it is worth noting that the cruise industry should be subject to more global monitoring and legislation because of its significant impact on the environment and human health. As far as the SWOT analysis for Carnival, one of their biggest strengths that should be noted is their brand reputation as an industry leader and their spot as the largest cruise line company. They are consistently ranked as one of the best cruises for money, for families, and one of the best cruises in the Caribbean. However, they have significant weaknesses such as their declining financial outlook, poor public image from their slew of lawsuits and headlines regarding environmental and social incidents, and a pure lack of transparency with their passengers and stakeholders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. There is an opportunity for a rebound from this pandemic, however, as there will likely be an economic uptick and a boom in demand for the cruise industry and other travel services post-pandemic. However, the corresponding threat right now is that the environment is very uncertain with a number of COVID-19 variants that are producing customer hesitancy to go on a cruise. They also face serious competitive action from their competitors that are taking CSR steps that Carnival has not matched. Looking at the market size, it was once nearly $30 billion before the pandemic in 2019, but in 2021 dropped as low as $6.65 billion. As far as market segments, 3 of the biggest are family cruises, Caribbean cruises, and cruises that cater to a lower budget. Carnival fits into all of these segments, as well as its top competitors, Royal Caribbean and Norwegian. Once again, Carnival is the largest cruise industry with a 2021 revenue of nearly $9 billion. They are followed in size by their 2 closest competitors, Royal Caribbean and Norwegian. I'll now pass it off to Darius to conduct our financial analysis.
Thank you, Campbell. While it's true that Carnival has a large overall share of the cruise industry, both Carnival and the greater cruise industry have established themselves as fragile against the political, social, and economic hardships that the COVID-19 pandemic has presented. As you can see, based upon our financial analysis and projections for the company, between 2019 and 2021, Carnival saw a sharp 97% decrease in sales revenue. This was primarily due to the dramatic decrease in customer yield as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also the spike of COVID-19 cases on Carnival ships due to the company's lacking ability to adhere and follow CDC advisories and other COVID-19 protective measures. Looking forward into the future, our financial projections suggest that there will be a significant recovery for Carnival. However, it is important to note that these projections represent a best case scenario for the company. Considering the rise in COVID cases that the global community is now facing due to the Omicron variant, and Carnival's continuous inability to value customer and employee safety, it would not be surprising if Carnival continued to experience financial hardships. Now looking at financial positions, first considering Carnival's standing in the stock market, the company, similar to the cruise line industry as a whole, experienced a significant decline in share value in 2019. In the past 5 years, Carnival's stock price has decreased 59.3%. Considering these metrics, it is rather clear during these unprecedented times, the average investor has lost considerable amount of faith in Carnival and the greater cruise line industry. Now looking at our key performance indicators, with a current ratio of 0.94 and a debt ratio of 1.81 and a long-term debt amounting to $26.83 billion, it's rather clear that Carnival has troubles paying off both its short-term and long-term debts to investors and creditors. This idea is reinforced by the fact that as of recently, Carnival's credit rating has been reduced to junk by Moody's. Although these financial failures have been catalyzed by the COVID-19 pandemic, it is important to note that the financial hardships are not new to Carnival. For example, considering Carnival's inability to pay off short-term debts and liabilities, the company exhibited an average current ratio of 0.3 from 2016 to 2019, that being before the pandemic, which is incredibly worse than what we are experiencing now with the pandemic. Now looking at growth concerns, as we mentioned earlier, in terms of revenue, both Carnival and the cruise line industry is suffering and will more likely than not continue to suffer. However, on top of this, we have to also consider our risks as potential investors. With an ROI of negative 20.86%, it is reasonable to believe based upon prior and current performances that Carnival will continue to be unable to supply a reasonable return on investment and prove our funding worthwhile. With all these factors in mind, growth problems in the future are inevitable. Transitioning to some of the more social and political issues associated with the company that will have adverse effects on finances going forward. As mentioned earlier, Carnival has a consistent history of not following CDC guidelines and advisories, which has led to several COVID-19 deaths on cruise liners. If Carnival does not better address these issues going forward, it will certainly result in more long-term financial losses. The reason being is due to the fact that millennials and generations after it, such as Gen Z, tend to make investments that are the most ESG friendly. So looking long-term, as individuals become more progressive with their purchasing decisions, those who cater to changing customer prioritizations will succeed, while those who don't implement necessary changes, such as Carnival, will be left in the past. I'll now transition to Amon, who will go over our outlined recommendations.
All right, to start off the recommendations, I would like to remind everyone of the stance we took at the start of the presentation. Carnival Corporation and its subsidiaries are not a worthwhile investment for the NAFI consulting firm. We have a general recommendation that NAFI Consulting stays away from the cruise industry as a whole when looking for companies to invest in. Carnival and its fellow competitors are known for their notorious CSR practices, and their values do not coincide with the NAFI consulting values. If NAFI Consulting is still looking to invest in Carnival, Carnival must make these 3 specific changes in the coming slides. When it comes to COVID-19, Carnival must heed to CDC regulations about potential trip cancellations and occupancy limitations on their ships. They must also treat customers and employees with complete transparency about the amount of COVID-19 cases while on board, as well as trip altercations due to COVID. Carnival will benefit from a positive public image as they show they care about their customers, and employees will see a company that actually cares about them, something Carnival has not shown in the past. The cost of this recommendation will range from a loss of around $291 net profit per passenger when it comes to occupancy limitations, or a total of $875,000 per cruise cancellation, given an average of 3,000 passengers on a cruise ship. These costs are warranted in a pandemic when putting the safety of customers first in order to allow sailing in the future. When it comes to fuel, we are recommending Carnival to invest $1 billion into R&D of alternative fuels by 2031. The objective is to create plans to use battery, fuel cell, or other renewable resources to power as many ships as possible in Carnival's fleet. The benefits of this plan bring a positive public image, high return on investment from reduced costs in fueling, and few fines, which Carnival has a hard time avoiding, as we have seen throughout this presentation. And finally, we recommend higher wages for employees, raising the current standard of $16.6 thousand a year to $31.7 thousand a year. With terrible working conditions, terrible health and medical services, these employees are working 7 days a week with an average shift of 12 hours. They are overworked and underpaid at the current wage level. This higher wage should lead to employees that are incentivized to work harder, improvement in employee retention, and higher skilled workers through the hiring competition. Some of the cons are that the cost for customers will increase, as well as the cost for Carnival, although customers are willing to pay for a higher quality service. The bottom line is, if Carnival increases minimum wages, there will obviously be more costs, but the increase in customer yield due to these policy changes could very well offset these additional costs. Thank you for listening.